but I think quite often they were extremely concerned. By this time, these guys, Marcello, Civello, who I wouldn't have said before, but I think, as I say, based on this book, the evidence he provides, and Johnson and Hoover, they could see this common and mortal enemy in JFK and RFK. And the actions of the brothers was bringing the world down. So Wade and Hoover and Marcello were trying to sort of stay afloat at this time, and I think they were now going to attempt to get back at the government because of what the government was doing to them. Prosecution of John Eli Stone. He was a close ally of Civello. He was indicted for violating federal gambling and racketeering laws. And Arnold Stone, does anybody know Arnold Stone? He was RFK's deputy, and he'd been set up by RFK to deal with this guy Stone. And although in the end he was indicted and he went to court, but Judge Hughes let him off with the lightest of sentences. And there's at the end of the book, North actually interviews Arnold Stone, and you can see that he was extremely pissed off with the way that he'd been treated under both Wade and Syracuse. And Arnold Stone never did bring down the mafia. Looking now at Jack Ruby, and this is where I think, straight away again, if you've read any of the books on Ruby at the time of the assassination, this was what was happening. Press release in April, JFK was going to Dallas. May, Ruby travels to New Orleans. June, the trip was confirmed by LBJ and Connolly. Ruby starts moving around more, New York, Chicago, travels to Miami and New Orleans, and the 15th of November, Al Gruber, who was one of the hitmen, actually visits Ruby in Dallas. Yeah, and you've only got to look at the number of, I'll just put these all up, and this is the number of telephone calls that started occurring soon after the 23rd of April. And I think this is an indication that Jack Ruby knew what was happening. He was going to have to be in the planning at this stage. I mean, when I put in red there, that David Yallis, who was a Trafficante sidekick, he was a real murderer. He was a Teamster hitman, and yet there was Ruby actually contacting him, and through Barney Baker, who was one of Hoffa's sidekicks, actually contacted him as well. Gerald Posner would have us believe that all these telephone calls were made by Jack Ruby because he was having problems with his girls at the Carousel Club. Jim Carner, Marcello, Jimmy Hoffa and Trafficante and Costello, would he have needed to talk to all them based on problems with his union? I don't think so. So, Ruby's involvement. He was a gun runner to Batista and Castro on behalf of the mafia. Mafia involvement. Worked at the racetrack in Santa Anita, run by Johnny Roselli. Remember that name?
That's California.
It is. And I want you to remember that. Illegal drugs and gambling going on there. He was a gun runner to the anti-Castro Cubans, involvement with Guy Bannister and later Pontchartrain, where they were training the anti-Castro Cubans. He had a interface with many of the Dallas Police Department, and they found him extremely useful. He acted as paymaster of the mob through this guy Jones. Money had to change hands. It would be Ruby who did the payment, receiving and giving out. He delivered, it is believed, if you believe Julia and Mercer, that he actually delivered one of the riflemen to the grassy knoll in that lorry, which stopped by the Dealey Plaza on the day of the assassination. He directed the shooters during the assassination. If you talk to Tony Bazin, very interesting as to how he believes that he was involved with that. He told the FBI on the day of the assassination, standing outside on the corner of Elm Street to this guy Bob Vanderslice, you're going to watch the fireworks. So at that stage, he knew it was going to go on. And then after the assassination, before the assassination and after, he was seen in loads of places. He was tracking Oswald right down to what he had. I think. So, you know, the fact that he was at this stage in these places, I think at this stage he had been told by the mafia, you're the guy that's going to have to get rid of him, because the police had failed to do so at the Texas Theatre. People say he may have actually planted the magic bullet on the gurney at Parkland Hospital. He was certainly in Parkland Hospital. So
the Warren Commission went to desperate lengths to try to deny it.
He's wrong. Yes, he did.
Went to desperate lengths to deny it.
Yes. Was it Sept Canto?
Whereas he normally did the opposite. He usually went, was keen to actually say he was places.
Yes.
And Wilmer Tice.
Sorry?
And Wilmer Tice.
Yeah.
How do you know he was definitely in Parkland Hospital?
Because he talked to Sept Cantor, who knew him personally.
That wasn't in though, was it? That was outside.
Well, okay, but the Warren Commission denied that he was anywhere near the Parkland Hospital, didn't they?
So, that racetrack, remember what it was in California?
Santa Anita.
Yes, I did a few of those. Yes, we'll come on to that. Blanking out of the Warren Commission on the FBI report. I'll show you those reports briefly in a couple of shows.
What was the racetrack that Sir Ham was with?
I was just going to Google that. I was just going to Google
Was it the same one?
thing.
Was it?
Have a look.
I don't think so, but it sounds Santa something.
It's still there, folks, because today, you could go to an Oktoberfest on that track, and you could see the running of the Breeders' Cup, the American Pharaoh Stakes. They're the runners. I'm not quite sure of the time of day, but if we could whisk ourselves out there, I wouldn't mind being at an Oktoberfest. So that track is still operational. Just a couple of
He was, yeah.
pictures there.
Yeah. Santa Anita.
It is Santa Anita, is it?
Sam worked there.
Wow,
Yeah, there must have been a tie up there somewhere. So this is Jack Ruby stalking his prey. You can see in those pictures there various times in Oswald's arraignment and how he was in front of the... yes.
Corrects.
He did.
Wade.
PC, it's not the fair
Wade.
And he also tries to get into the office where Oswald is.
He did, yeah, and he was told, Jack, no, so you can't come in here, yeah.
Stuart, excuse me, if you look at the scene where Oswald is being taken through the doorway,
Yes.
just before Ruby steps forward, does he not glance to his left?
Yeah.
Does he not recognise Ruby there?
Yes.
But the lights would have been at him, so there's nothing to say.
Yeah, if you stand in that doorway and all the lights would have been facing him, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
But
It is possible.
do you feel that, does the group feel that he does glance
It
over?
looks like he does.
He did,
Yeah.
he does, yes. So the other thing was that he was carrying a pistol. They say that he didn't carry a pistol, but later on, when he was interviewed, he said that he carried a pistol every time he went. So whether he was trying to cover his arse somehow, I don't know. But,
Is there any photographic evidence of him outside the TSBD, or has that been disclaimed now? He was right on the edge of one photograph.
There is, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
they don't
walking across
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
street.
Is that
No,
disclaimed
that's
now?
been discounted.
No,
They've
so
actually worked out who
somebody
it
else.
is and
Yeah.
everything now, yeah.
So, getting on to that document, this is a document from Bobby Jean Moore, who had recognised Ruby because it had been said in the press that Ruby was not involved with the mafia. And this guy actually corrected them. And you'll see the statement down the bottom there that was signed, that during the time Moore was employed by Civello and the Italian importing company, Moore suspected that his employers, Joseph Civello and Frank Lamonte, were engaged in racket activities because of obtaining cheese imported from Italy, although that was his alleged job. It was his opinion, based on this, that they might be importing narcotics. He had no additional information to substantiate this. Ruby was also a frequent visitor and associate to Civello and Lamonte. So here, in writing, is a statement that says Ruby is involved with the mafia. But what do we get when it goes into the Warren Commission? They just take that part out. So we put the first part in and remove any reference to Ruby and the mafia. Just go through this, I'm dropping behind time a bit. The mafia and the unions are angry. Yes, I'm not surprised. United States Senate Select Committee on Improper Activities in Labour and Management Buchanan Committee. You know that JFK and RFK were heavily involved with that, and they did everything they could to bring about a change to the structure of the mafia and the mob, and to try and get rid of the buggers, to say the least.
Could I just quickly throw something in? I know that you're behind. Just back to the reference on Giancana having funded Kennedy's campaign.
Yes.
Somewhere on one of these multiple documentaries I've caught, I cannot remember who it was, I didn't note it down, but there is somebody from the period making a statement that yes, okay, Giancana did do this, but at the same time Marcello made sure that a suitcase for $500,000
went to
Nixon. Now, surely John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy will have known about that.
Yes.
So it's like, it's obvious that the mafia were playing both sides.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
all's fair in love and war.
Same with Batista and Castro, they were armed
just-
both of them,
yes,
so whoever
just
won would be
one
the...
more,
Sorry.
folks.
Just to let you guys know, I've popped your lunch in the room next to your tea room, and I got you some more milk.
Well done. Yes. Yes, but you're quite right. I mean, actually, they were pretty pissed off with each other, because Marcello had and Giancana had not done what Marcello wanted. And Giancana had gone off and supported Nixon, as you say.
Oh, was Giancana who supported Nixon?
Yes,
Oh, right,
it was,
okay.
yeah, so I believe, yes. Yeah.
Right, so they were at cross purposes.
They were at cross purposes.
Ah,
yeah.
interesting. Because it was Giancana was the one who ended up being killed. I think.
He was, yes. Marcello was the only one that survived.
Interesting.
Then we have Attorney General Bobby, when he was made Attorney General by his brother, he went after Hoffa in a big way. The staff quadrupled in 1 year. Mob targets for prosecution had grown from 40 to 2,300, and the convictions had quadrupled. The failure of the Bay of Pigs, they wanted to get back into Cuba, and they put the failure down to Kennedy, of course. And looking at this one, the failure, I think they saw the Cuban Missile Crisis as a failure, because let's face it, people like Curtis LeMay was waiting to drop his bombs and to get the Russians involved, and the mafia would have got, if they'd survived, I assume they may have survived in down some bunker somewhere, but they may have got back into Cuba. So they saw the Cuban Missile Crisis, I think, as a failure. The FDF wiretaps increased, and it started revealing mob thoughts on the brothers, and several reported that Kennedy would be hit. Then this is Marcello, who shouted out this "Livasi na Petra din scarpa," take this stone from my shoe. He wanted Kennedy gone. He also was purported to have said, "Don't worry about that, Bobby, son of a bitch, he will be taken care of." And the HSCA declared that Hoffa had the motive, means and opportunity for planning an assassination attempt on John Kennedy. There was a 250% increase in the number of attorneys between 60 and 63, 900 increase in the days in the field from 660 to 6,172, increase in days in the grand jury from 100 to 1,353, and so on. So these guys really meant business. This, if we can hear it, I hope, if I can find it. No.
I decline to answer this question on the grounds that the answer may tend to incriminate.
I decline the answer on the ground. The answer I'll be agreeing with myself.
Somebody that's been as successful as you can remember how to say I decline to answer a question, so don't put that act on.
I want to make sure.
Yeah.
As chief legal counsel for what became known as the Senate Brackets Committee, Bobby began probing into labor unions and mobsters, grilling some of the toughest gangsters in America. But no one rankled him more than Jimmy Hoffa. Hoffa was president of the Brotherhood of Teamsters, the country's largest, richest, and one of its most corrupt unions. Bobby said he detected in Hoffa absolute evilness.
Did you say anything to the effect that the jury treated you very well, and that you thought that you could do very well before a jury? I know that's pretty ridiculous. Did you say anything like that? I did not. And I appeal to the chair, and that be taken out of the record.
Bobby turned his investigation of Hoffa into a holy cause, holding hearings month after month, and calling more than 1,500 witnesses. Punishing Hoffa became a crusade.
You've got people in Detroit, at least 15 who have police records. You've got Joey Glinthal in Chicago. I tell you, you're not tough enough to get rid of these people now.
But Hoffa was contemptuous. He denied any wrongdoing, taunting the crusading young investigator.
Did you say that SOB, I'll break his back?
Who?
You.
Say to who?
To anyone.
Take your speech. I don't even know what I was talking about. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Mr. Hoffa, all I'm trying to find out, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I'm trying to find out whose back you were going to break.
Take your speech. Take your speech.
I used to love, Hoffa said, to bug the little bastard. Bobby could never bring Hoffa down.
So you can see there that there was not a lot between those two characters, and the Teamsters and the Mafia, I think, must have been involved. Just a couple more, if we've got 5-10 minutes, I'll miss out one, but I do want to add something at the end too. This is, I'm playing this because although Joseph Miltier, William Somerset's the famous one where the prediction actually of the assassination occurred, not very good sound you'll hear, but I've included it because there may have been involvement with the Mafia later on in the assassination of Martin Luther King. So Miltier, although he was a right-wing extremist, and not strictly Mafia, but he certainly would have known of what was going on. They're actually talking about taking the rifle up, being able to break the rifle down and put it down. So,
but that's professional assassination type,
yes,
you know, rifles.
Yes.
The kind of stuff you see in movies where they open a
Yes.
little metal suitcase and he's got it all set up in
But
different
presumably a
slots in the
Picano is
corner.
not sort of really built for that.
No, it isn't.
Unless you've got a dime.
Yes,
No, one
that's
of the
the pieces
one
trying
of
to do it.
yes, one of the famous things that Ian Griggs did was
Yes.
to actually try to take apart.
He did.
I remember I gave him a dime, specifically a silver dime that was well worn, because an ordinary new one wouldn't fit the slots of the screws.
Oh.
Is this the Miltier that Jack White identified?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same guy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Can't be very many, it's unusual.
Died when his stove blew up.
Really?
Yeah.
Is Jack White's work still credible, guys?
Not as much as it
Bit,
was.
which bit?
Yeah.
I think of all of the Daily Plaza witnesses, that people have identified as people like George Bush or there was somebody who was mentioned earlier, Ruby being in Daily Plaza. Milty is probably the one that stands up better than
Yes,
anything.
Yes.
me too. Yeah.
It's him.
Photographically, it's
Yeah,
very,
it's-
very close.
yeah.
Isn't it?
Has the Badgeman idea died now? So is that gone?
I don't know. Well,
Not in some lives, I think that, it is.
Debatable.
Well, the image
Yeah.
may be, but it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't rule out the possibility of there
Oh,
actually
right.
being someone back
No.
there, does it? I mean, the policemen, plural, were seen by Gene Hill, even if the photos doesn't work.
Yeah,
I'm distracted. Sorry, Stuart.
but was Tippett there? I mean, some people think it was Tippett.
Well,
no.
I don't think so.
He was elsewhere.
This final, no, it's not the final one. I'm going to play you. I'm going to miss out a little bit, but I do want to play you this because it is Jack Ruby. In the last days of his life, when he was interviewed, it seems to be a theatre in which he's talking. And I want you to take note of what he says as he comes out, and he's still with the press at the time.
Jack Ruby gave clear clues to his role in the assassination when he was interviewed on camera.
So is that what he meant?
Stevenson was very, very, very liberal.
He was. Well, he was badly treated, of course, in Dallas, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, they hit him over the head with
But,
signs.
Women, yeah.
So was this the sign that he was letting you now know that?
Treaty with Warren to Washington, didn't
Yes, that's right. He did, didn't he? We haven't got a lot of time, so I'll just run through to my conclusions. I did have quite a bit about the Dallas police and how they were involved. I'm going to have to go through this anyway, because it's the way it's set up.
They're all interlinked. When you showed all that list at the start,
Yes.
when we say like right-wing groups, all these groups are right-wing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The names, it's just,
Yeah.
well, you've tried it. When you start investigating anything like this, the names just get more and more and more. You don't know when to stop. These guys, I think, were involved simply by they failed to do their duty. Fritz is not liked by Alaric Rosmond. And some of you, do you remember in Canterbury? I'll never forget this. Some of you would have been there when Alaric was doing this. He was talking about the leading out of Oswald as he comes out to get shot by Ruby, and Fritz is actually about 8 feet in front of Oswald. And Alaric Rosmond, who is an extremely intelligent man, genuinely believes that Fritz was setting Oswald up because he didn't want to get in the way of the shot. And he actually walked outside the room. He was presenting on the board. He walked outside the room, and as he walked outside the room, there was a young lad in the audience he was only about 9 at the Mark Bridges' son. I think he was about 9 at the time, and there was a deathly hush because we didn't know what Alec was doing. And this lad said, "Where's he gone, Dad?" And then Alaric strides back in as if, he's acting as Fritz and how he was walking in front of... I'm not sure about that. It may be that I should do a lot more reading about the police. I think some of these guys were very dubious.
The car horns, the biggest...
Yes, that's really suspicious. Yes. This guy I will mention, Jim Braden. Well, it wasn't actually Jim Braden. He was wandering around. He was hanging around outside the Deltex building just at the point of the assassination. In fact, people say he was on the 3rd floor of the building at the time of the assassination. He was arrested outside, taken to the sheriff's office, and he was released. There's the Deltex building, right near the TSBD there. And he, on the night of the 22nd, Braden stayed at the Teamster Financed Cabana Hotel, and Jack Ruby visited the Cabana Hotel that night. The law discovered, later discovered that Braden had visited the offices of Lamar Hunt, the Texas oil billionaire, that was probably about money. Jack Ruby visited Hunt's office the same day, and then we have David Ferry's involvement, and David Ferry, of course, you could write 10 books on him, and Ferry was working for this guy, G. Ray Gill, who was Carlos Marcello's attorney, so it was he was a dodgy character, and in fact it wasn't Jim Braden, it was Eugene Hale Braden, and he got a dodgy driving licence which had been specially made for him. He was just released by the police, and obviously later on they caught up with him. But at the time of the assassination, I think he may well have been controlling the shooters. I think there was really, and very quickly, these are some of the guys who may have been involved, and I think Braden should be one of these guys. These are the guys, Badge Man, Umbrella Man, we know those have been discounted now. Roscoe White and the Manhole, well, I doubt it. But these are the guys who at least have been, I think James Files may well have been involved. So the cover-up, again I've quoted very much from this book. This Zaroma Club, which is actually the Anonymous Club, they renamed it. And the fact that this was really controlling what was going on in Dallas. Barefoot Sanders, who was a Dallas lawyer, and Sarah Hughes, they were biased totally in favour of mob gambling in Dallas. And you could see that it was just being set up for Kennedy to be murdered. And this guy, Stone, who was the deputy to RFK, genuinely believes that RFK should have been much more cute and should have, on the basis of this knowledge of this club and what Chilella and Campisi and Hughes and Sanders and so on were doing, he should never have gone to Dallas. So I think the whole operation of the law enforcement organisations in how they dealt with crime was severely hampered by a significant element of internal wrangling and illicit behaviour. Almost mutually assured destruction. We won't dob you as long as you don't dob us. I think it probably continues to this day. This takes about 6 minutes. If you don't mind watching it, I think it's very moving actually. It's a film. It's all the films that were taken of Kennedy travelling and Jackie travelling right from Love Field to the time the car disappears under the underpass. And I find it very moving actually. I think it's the music that does it. Just see what you think. At one point you do see Clint Hill just for half a second climb aboard the car to protect Jackie back, as they should have done. They should have been going on and off the car as the car slowed down, and you see Clint Hill do it once. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
So, we are back to each other.
Stuart, we're going to do a quick introduction.
Yes,
around
sorry,
the-
you're quite right. Thank you for reminding me. We'll do that before we eat. I'll leave this on so we can hear. Right, Jean, please start.
Okay, I'm a former contract lawyer, so documentation, everything about that is why I've read tens of thousands of the documents.
You are Jean.
My name's Jean. I live near.
I'm Paul, and this is local for me because I live in Teesside. I work in recruitment in the NHS.
Hi, I'm Dave. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a novice. I'm interested in this, and this is the best place for me to be to pursue that interest. So.
What book did you actually bring for me to read today?
Oh, you've dobbed me in, haven't you? I am the proud, if somewhat ashamed owner. It only cost me £13, and it was shipped in its own sack, fresh from the United States. Big US mail sack. I'm a proud owner of a copy of Berlioz's. I don't even want to mention it, but I hasten to add that because I trained as a historian, the only reason I possess it, along with Mailer and Posner, is ultimately one day when I actually have something really interesting, hopefully, to say, I want to check it against what they say, because obviously you've got to be able to counter your critics.
Compare sources.
Indeed, and I think just based on the way he rubbishes so much, he's almost a useful starting place. If you want to learn anything, check what he says, then go and research it, and then, I mean, that's ultimately. Anyway. Thank you, Stuart.
My name's Jamie. It's nice to have a meeting locally. That's in addition to going down to Canterbury, which is always good every year, but thanks for putting it on this year.
Great.
I'm Paul Jeffrey, I'm from Yorkshire as well. I've been interested in the case for about 16, 17 years now, and I've since sort of branched out into other cases such as 9/11, 7/7, because that's what happens to you when you start on board. You get sucked into others.
I'm Christine, and I'm here to listen and learn. I'm new to it really, but I'm fascinated.
Good girl. We love to have you on board, Christine.
I'm Fred. I've been following this since I was 13. My main area of interest at the moment is the Zapruder film and the moment photograph, and I'm intrigued how, if you look carefully at the moment photograph, we see Zapruder and Madeline on the plinth, but his hands with his camera seem to be at his waist, and I can't for the life of me comprehend whether I've got it wrong. How can he film from his waist? Has no one else noticed that?
We'll have to look again.
Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But there's a Zapruder film, having stood on that concrete bollard himself with my 7-year-old son who said, "Why are we here, Dad? Why aren't we at Disneyland?" Well, we went to Disneyland later, but we had to go and stand.
I'd be knows now.
But that's my two.
I'm Pete. Again, it's been a few decades really, been interested, pursuing it just by reading books. Much to my other half's discouragement, the bookshelves are now full and I've got a problem. So yeah, not just interested in JFK, although that's the main one, but also Bobby Kennedy as well. I find, while not being I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I don't like most of them, 99% of them, but I'm somebody who likes to pursue things that you can take into a legal framework. And that's mainly what I do, is read books. I've got 2 on the go at the minute. Just got hundreds of them now, and if you all keep away from Ian Briggs's collection, I'll have some more. Sorry to repeat. I haven't double booked on what you've already got on the list.
Hi everyone, my name's Tony Power, and just like Christine, I feel I'm very new to this, so I'm here to learn and to listen. I think both Christine and I both come from an organisation called the Whitechapel Society, which is about the Japanese murders, and through there we met a guy called Bill Beadle, who's a member of this club, and he introduced me to the club and said, would you like to come along? So I said, okay, I'll go ahead. And then he recommended a great book by Matthew Smith, not to say goodbye to America. There was another one which I need to read. I found that a fascinating read, and I really enjoyed your talk, Stuart. I think it was really good because I think for me what I found really interesting is the whole cover-up, the whole alliance of evil, as you actually called it, and the people that had it in for it, and the motives they had behind that. And particularly today, you're talking about the opportunity and how they could have planned it, who were involved in the planning. That was really interesting. So thank you.
I'm Richard. I've been interested in it since I was about 12. I co-edit the Dealey Plaza Echo with James Gordon. You're talking about books and the bookshelves are full. Bookshelves are a thing of the past with me. I've patented a new method. It's just piles of books everywhere. Staircases, landings, everything. The house is just sinking into
They're going to do a film about you one day about a hoarder.
I'm made for a Channel 5 documentary. The house is just sinking into its foundations. But yeah, I'm interested in all aspects of the case and have been for a number of years and found it endlessly fascinating.
I'm Philip. I'm just a novice again and interested in mysteries really. What fascinates me is the common themes that run between a lot of these world events, and I think there's a possibility they can be linked in some way. I don't know whether the truth will ever be found out. I suspect it will only be if records are digitalised and hacked professionally, if there ever are any written records. It's just a fascinating story.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Turetsky, and I've been a student of the Kennedy case ever since the year after the assassination. Mark Lane came to my university to give a talk, and he blew the top off the auditorium. Literally, well, not literally. and he set me going, and since I'm a science student, or what I was at the time, I started looking into various scientific things, and I knew a lot about photography, and I began to look into things like the photographic evidence, the photographic record in particular. I started studying the backyard photo of Oswald with the rifle and the two completely contradictory communist magazines you so proudly held in one hand. I mean, you know, if you were a genuine subscriber to one of those, you'd want to kill the guy who held the other one. Vice versa. So, or at least do serious physical damage. Anyway, been a student of the case all the time. Since then, that puts me maybe the oldest student in this case who's continuously thinking about it since 1964. Yeah, I'm older than I want to admit. And I'm going to talk to you today about the timing of the shots, which I'm hoping I'm talking to almost a complete new audience, except for Stuart, maybe one or two others. I gave this talk long ago,
possibly. Yes.
Many years back, and I don't see very many people there who were there then. So
we look forward to it.
Everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
My name's Peter Antill. Day job, I work for Cranfield University at the United Kingdom Defence Academy in Shrivenham. I'm DPUK Membership Secretary. My interests, I've been looking at it for about 27 years now, since a particular film came out, which I'll mention in my talk, which is a bit later, and my sort of broad interest. I've been sort of getting more into the broad strategic aspects of especially the political environment, the sort of Cold War environment at the time, but also quite interested in sort of mechanics of what happened, the sort of the weapons, the ballistics. As one of my other interests, which I'll mention, is I target shoot. Both me and my dad have belonged to Potterspire Rifle and Pistol Club, the NRA, and I also belong to the HPSA, which is the Historic Breech Loading Small Arms Association. So we both shoot and we both collect historic service rifles, things like the Enfields, Mausers, Carcanos, Mosin Nagants, that sort of thing.
Thanks so much, Peter. Firing around the Carcano, is there not?
Yeah, that's
loading it and firing.
Yeah, it's an M1891/40 Fusil, which is the long rifle.
You remember that, do you?
Oh, that
one. I
wow.
was between 6 and 7 seconds.
So it was you.
I travelled back in time because actually it was 5 years before I was born.
I guessed as much.
One of my